Beloved chosen one, something in your spirit has been stirring for longer than you can explain. It has followed you through ordinary mornings and restless nights, through moments when you smiled in front of others and moments when you sat alone trying to understand why your heart never fully settled into the rhythm of this world. You have felt it in the pauses between tasks, in the quiet after disappointment, in the strange sense that your life carries a meaning deeper than what anyone around you can see. This is not your imagination. This is not emotional chance. This is not the product of exhaustion or wishful thinking. You are feeling the weight of a divine summons. Heaven has been pressing on your life, not to crush you, but to awaken you. There are seasons when God does not shout over the noise. He waits until the noise begins to lose its power over you. He allows the glitter of distraction to fade. He lets the voices that once impressed you become hollow. He permits you to reach the edge of your own understanding so that when His call finally rises in your spirit, you recognize it as the only voice that ever carried real life. That is where you are now. You are standing in a sacred moment of recognition. Something holy is drawing near, and your soul knows it before your mind can fully name it. You were never created to drift through life half awake. You were never designed to spend your days shrinking, imitating, or apologizing for the fire placed inside you. There is a reason you have always felt that your path would not look like the path of the crowd. There is a reason comfort has never satisfied you for long. There is a reason the temporary things of this world fail to hold your deepest loyalty. You were built with a spiritual memory, and even when you tried to ignore it, that memory kept reaching for what is eternal. Deep inside, you have always known that you belong to something greater. This summons does not always arrive with visible signs. Often it comes as a holy unrest. It comes as an ache you cannot explain, a pull you cannot dismiss, a deep knowing that the chapter you have been living cannot continue forever. You begin to sense that you are being called out of delay, out of compromise, out of emotional fog, and into clarity. You begin to understand that some doors are closing because they were never meant to hold your future. Some people are falling away because they were assigned to a former version of you. Some desires are drying up because heaven is removing your appetite for what cannot go with you where you are being led. Do not be afraid of this separation. What feels like loss is often the beginning of alignment. What feels like emptiness is often sacred space being cleared for an encounter. God knows how to prepare a vessel before He fills it. He knows how to quiet a soul before He speaks to it. He knows how to bring you to the end of self-made answers so that when the true answer comes, you do not treat it casually. You are being prepared to hear with a different kind of hearing, not the hearing of the ear alone, but the hearing of the Spirit. There are people around you who may never understand why this moment matters so deeply to you. They may see only your silence, your withdrawal, your reflection, your tears, your hesitation. But heaven sees something else. Heaven sees a chosen life being summoned into attention. Heaven sees a vessel being called to wake up. Heaven sees someone who has carried hidden burdens, silent questions, and private battles, yet never lost the secret desire to know God more deeply. That desire is not small. That desire is evidence. It is proof that your spirit recognizes its source. You have been through enough to become hard, but instead you became aware. You have been through enough to become bitter, but instead you became watchful. You have been through enough to stop believing that your life could hold divine purpose. Yet here you are, still listening, still searching, still sensing that the story is not over. That is because God has preserved something in you. Through every disappointment, every betrayal, every delay, every season of confusion, He has kept a flame alive. Sometimes it burned low. Sometimes you wondered whether it had gone out, but it did not die. And now the breath of heaven is moving over it again. This is the hour to stop calling your sensitivity weakness. It is not weakness that makes you feel deeply. It is not weakness that makes you discern what others overlook. It is not weakness that makes you unable to rest in places where truth is absent. What you carry has made your journey heavier at times, but it has also marked you for sacred work. There is a reason you cannot fully belong to surfaces and illusions. You were made to respond to depth. You were made to hear the hidden call behind visible events. You were made to recognize when eternity is touching time. So do not dismiss this moment. Do not rush past it. Do not numb what God is trying to awaken. Sit with the weight of it. Let the call find you completely. Let it move through your thoughts, your memories, your fears, and your expectations. Let it reveal what must be released and what must be embraced. Comment 888 if your spirit knows this message found you at the right moment. What is happening now is not random emotion. It is the beginning of response, and the summons has gone out, and your spirit is answering. Even if you do not yet understand the full map, you can feel the direction. Even if you cannot name every detail of your assignment, you know you are being drawn closer, even if part of you still trembles. Another part of you is rising with unmistakable strength. That is the sign. The chosen do not always begin with certainty, but they do begin with recognition. Something inside them says yes before they can explain why. And now that yes is forming in you, quietly, deeply, powerfully, it is taking shape. The old distractions are losing their grip. The old identities are cracking. The old fears are being exposed by a greater light. You are not being abandoned. You are being summoned. You are not falling apart. You are being gathered inward so that you can be sent forward. You are not late. You are standing at the threshold of an appointed moment, and the God who called you is already waiting on the other side of your obedience. Before you ever understood the weight on your life, God had already placed His hand upon you. Before you had language for calling, before you had strength for battle, before you had wisdom to discern why your path felt different from the paths around you, heaven had already marked you. That is why your story has never felt ordinary to you. Even when you tried to live like everyone else, something in your spirit kept resisting the idea that you were here for small things. Deep down, you have always carried the strange awareness that your life was being watched over by a power greater than circumstance. You were not drifting into meaning. You were born inside it. This is where the story of Moses begins to walk beside your own, not as a distant tale from a vanished world, but as living truth that reveals what God does with those He chooses early. Moses entered the world in a time of danger. He was born under a threat that sought to destroy destiny before it could even speak. The powers of that age wanted to silence what heaven had sent. Yet the very child marked for destruction was the child God covered, preserved, and carried through the river of uncertainty. His beginning looked fragile, but his life was not fragile in the hands of God. His beginning looked exposed, but his future was hidden in divine intention. You know something about that kind of hidden protection. When you look back honestly, you can see moments that should have broken you, seasons that should have erased your faith, and pressures that should have turned your heart to stone. Yet you are still here, not unchanged, but still here. Not untouched, but still standing. There were times when you thought you survived by instinct, by effort, by luck, or by the mercy of other people. But beneath all those visible layers, another hand was moving. God was guarding what belonged to Him. He was preserving something in you that even you did not yet understand. Moses did not know, as an infant in the basket, what rested upon his life. He did not know that deliverance would one day move through his obedience. He did not know that nations would be confronted and captives would be led out through the authority God would place upon him. All he knew, if a child can know anything at all, was the movement of waters and the mystery of being carried. That is how many chosen lives begin. You are carried before you are conscious of calling. You are protected before you are mature enough to cooperate with purpose. You are shielded before you can even name the danger around you. That truth matters now because you may still be measuring your worth by what you have already accomplished, by how confident you feel, or by how clearly you understand your future. But chosen people are not first defined by their own awareness. They are first defined by the decision of God. His choosing comes before your confidence. His covering comes before your language. His purpose comes before your understanding. That means your present uncertainty does not cancel your calling. It only means you are still growing into what heaven knew from the beginning. The world often tries to make you believe that identity is something you invent. But the deeper truth is that destiny is something you discover. Moses was not random. He was not an accident hidden inside a tragic hour. He was an answer born into opposition. You are not random either. You are not a forgotten soul trying to force meaning out of chaos. You were seen before you were understood by others. You were named in the spirit before people ever misnamed you in the flesh. You were appointed before your environment could define you. There is a holy comfort in that. It means your life does not begin with human approval. It does not depend on the opinions of those who failed to recognize what God placed in you. It does not collapse because others misunderstood your sensitivity, your inwardness, your intensity, or your hunger for truth. Moses was hidden for a reason. What is chosen is often concealed before it is revealed. What is precious is often covered before it is commissioned. God knows how to let a calling grow in secret until the proper hour arrives. One line of scripture captures this mystery with quiet power. Before Moses ever stood before Pharaoh, before the wilderness, before the burning bush, before the sea opened, there was this testimony about his beginning. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23. That verse is not only about parental courage, it is about divine recognition. Something about Moses signaled heaven's claim on his life. In the same way, there has always been evidence around you that your existence carries sacred weight. Perhaps others saw glimpses of it before you did. Perhaps they noticed your depth, your tenderness, your unusual strength, your refusal to settle for emptiness. Perhaps they did not have language for it, but they sensed that your life held more than appearance. Even when fear surrounded your beginning, God was not intimidated by it. Even when threats pressed against your future, heaven did not step back. So as you move deeper into this summons, remember this. You do not begin with lack. You begin with being marked. You do not begin with confusion. You begin with being known. You do not begin with rejection. You begin with being chosen. Just as Moses was carried through danger toward destiny, you too have been carried by unseen mercy toward an appointed hour. And now that hour is drawing nearer. Not because God has only just noticed you, but because the one who marked you before your first breath is bringing into light what he decided long ago. As the mark on your life becomes harder to ignore, another truth begins to rise with it. Being chosen has always carried separation. This is the part many people do not understand, because they assume favor should always feel like comfort, acceptance, and easy belonging. But in the kingdom of God, being marked often means you cannot remain at ease in places that were never built for your true identity. That is why your life has carried so many moments of inward distance, even when you stood in crowded rooms. That is why you have often felt present with others but not fully joined to the spirit of what surrounded you. You were never meant to be shaped by every environment that held you. You were meant to pass through some places without becoming part of them. This truth becomes clear in the life of Moses. He was preserved from death, but he was then raised in Pharaoh's house. Imagine the tension of that. He lived inside power without belonging to its heart. He grew up near privilege, near order, near influence, near the machinery of empire. Yet his spirit was tied to a different people and a different purpose. He could see the palace, learn its rhythms, understand its language, and still know somewhere deep within that he was not born to protect its throne. He was close to greatness as the world defines it, yet he was not created to draw his identity from that greatness. That is where your own journey begins to echo his. There have been places where you learned much, gained strength, and saw how systems work, yet your soul never relaxed there. You may have stood inside circles that looked impressive to others. You may have touched opportunities that seemed like success on the surface. You may have been welcomed into rooms that promised security, validation, or advancement. Yet even then, something in you stayed awake. Something kept whispering that this was not home. That inner tension was not failure. It was discernment. It was the early sign that your spirit could not make peace with what did not align with your assignment. The world often calls this restlessness a problem. It tells you to adapt more fully, to quiet your conscience, to stop feeling so deeply, to accept the rewards of a life that looks polished even when it is spiritually empty. But chosen people cannot thrive on borrowed identity. They cannot live forever in structures that honor appearance while resisting truth. Sooner or later, the separation becomes unavoidable. Sooner or later, the conflict between where you are and who you are becomes too loud to ignore. Moses reached that point when he saw the suffering of his people and could no longer remain emotionally untouched. The palace could shelter his body, but it could not silence his calling. He was living between two worlds, and eventually that tension broke open. In the same way, you have reached moments where the cost of pretending became heavier than the cost of change. You have felt the strain of carrying a deeper awareness in environments that preferred numbness. You have seen too much to go back to sleep. You have sensed too much to call darkness normal. You have heard too much in the spirit to keep acting as though your only purpose is to survive another day in systems that do not know your name in heaven. This separation does not always come dramatically. Sometimes it begins as a steady loss of appetite for what once attracted you. Sometimes it appears as silence where excitement used to be. Sometimes it feels like grief, because even unhealthy places can become familiar, and familiar things can be hard to release. But do not mistake grief for error. The heart can mourn what the spirit must leave behind. That does not mean you are outside the will of God. It often means you are stepping closer to it. There is also mercy in this season. God does not separate you merely to make you lonely. He separates you so you can hear clearly. He loosens your attachment to places that cannot carry your next season. He breaks false belonging so true belonging can be revealed. He teaches you that identity does not come from the palace, the crowd, the system, the title, or the applause. It comes from the one who marked you before birth and now calls you out from what cannot define you. So when you feel the ache of not fitting where others seem comfortable, do not rush to condemn yourself. There is wisdom in holy discomfort. There is protection in being unable to settle where your spirit would slowly die. There is love in the hand of God removing you from patterns that look secure but keep you far from your assignment. Your separation is not rejection from heaven. It is often evidence of heaven's protection. And as this message meets you in that place, let it strengthen rather than isolate you. Let it remind you that many who are waking up to their calling need the same courage to release false belonging and embrace sacred identity. If this speaks to your spirit, let your quiet agreement become part of that strengthening. You can like, share, and subscribe in a simple and sincere way so this word reaches another person standing in the same tension between comfort and calling. And if you choose to support the channel more deeply, there is also a donate link in the description for those who feel led to help carry these messages further. What matters most is that you do not run back to the palace just because the wilderness of transition feels unfamiliar. Moses could not remain where his spirit no longer agreed. Neither can you. The place that once sheltered you cannot become the place that defines you. God is leading you out, not to diminish you, but to bring you into the truth of who you have always been. What feels like separation is the beginning of alignment. What feels like distance is the first sign that your soul is turning toward home. Then comes the wilderness. And this is where many hearts become confused because the wilderness never looks like proof of chosenness at first. It looks like delay. It looks like distance. It looks like the long silence after a dramatic turning point. Moses had already left the palace. He had already felt the fracture between where he was and who he truly was. But after that rupture, he did not step immediately into visible destiny. He stepped into obscurity. He stepped into a landscape where the noise of Egypt faded and the hidden work of God began. That is what the wilderness does. It removes the audience. It strips away false urgency. It interrupts the illusion that purpose is always loud. And in that quiet, the soul is forced to become honest. You know this terrain more than you may realize. There have been seasons in your life when movement slowed and certainty thinned out. The doors you expected to open did not open. The recognition you thought would confirm your path did not come. The people who seemed central to your future faded into the background, and there you were, standing in a place that felt bare, trying to understand why a life marked by God would pass through such emptiness. But the wilderness is not empty in the way human fear imagines. It is full of hidden formation. It is full of holy correction. It is full of the kind of shaping that can only happen when there is nothing left to lean on except the presence of God. Moses learned this slowly. In the palace, he had access to education, position, and influence. In the wilderness, he learned endurance. He learned rhythm. He learned patience. He learned how to live without applause. He learned how to carry responsibility in places where no crowd was watching. He learned what it meant to walk through vastness without losing direction. These lessons did not look impressive on the surface, but they were preparing a vessel strong enough to bear the weight of divine assignment. God was not wasting Moses in Midian. God was building in secret what would one day stand before kings without trembling. That is why your painful seasons must be seen differently now. You have called some years wasted because they did not resemble the future you imagined. You have called some chapters barren because they did not produce immediate fruit. But heaven has not been absent in those places. God has been teaching you what cannot be learned in comfort. He has been exposing patterns in you that would have sabotaged a greater calling if they had remained untouched. He has been loosening your dependence on visible affirmation. He has been training your spirit to recognize His voice beneath the noise of your own ambition, fear, and self-protection. The wilderness is where motives are purified. At first, many people want purpose because purpose feels powerful. They want calling because calling sounds noble. They want destiny because destiny seems like the answer to insecurity. But in the wilderness, all those mixed motives begin to surface. You start to see how much of your striving was tied to being seen. You start to see how much of your urgency came from fear of being forgotten. You start to see how often you wanted movement more than maturity. This realization can feel painful, but it is mercy. God would rather wound your illusion now than let it poison your assignment later. Moses also had to be healed of false strength. Earlier in life, he tried to act in his own timing and through his own force. He saw injustice and responded impulsively, and the result drove him into exile. In the wilderness, God taught him a different kind of strength, one that does not erupt from the flesh but flows from surrender. That lesson matters for you as well. There were moments when you tried to force doors, force understanding, force change, force rescue. You thought urgency proved faith. But now you are learning that true authority is not frantic. It is formed. It is steady. It is rooted in communion with God rather than panic about outcomes. This is why the wilderness often feels both painful and holy at the same time. Painful, because it dismantles the versions of you that cannot continue. Holy, because every dismantling is making room for something truer. The silence is not punishment. The waiting is not abandonment. The hiddenness is not proof that you missed God. Often it is the very place where your inner life is brought into alignment with what heaven has spoken over you from the beginning. God is not merely preparing things for you. He is preparing you for what has been prepared. One verse captures the heart of this process with remarkable tenderness. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. Though these words were spoken later in Moses' journey, they reveal the lesson the wilderness had to teach him first. Before a man can stand before a sea and trust God to open a path, he must learn in secret that divine power does not depend on human frenzy. He must discover that silence before God is not weakness. It is the place where fear loses its rule and trust begins to breathe. So when you think about the wilderness now, do not only remember the loneliness, remember the formation. Remember that God does some of his finest work where human eyes cannot measure it. Remember that your quiet years were not empty years. They were years in which your roots went deeper than your branches were visible. They were years in which your soul was taught to survive without superficial nourishment. They were years in which heaven trained your hearing, softened your pride, exposed your wounds, and strengthened your endurance. And now, when the summons feels stronger and the next step begins to draw near, you can understand why this painful terrain was necessary. The wilderness was not where your calling disappeared. It was where your calling became durable. It was where the fire in you stopped being impulsive and started becoming pure. It was where God took the fragments of your old self and shaped them into a servant who could carry sacred weight. What hurt you did not destroy you. Under God's hand, it prepared you. At the beginning of this moment, there is one practical thing worth mentioning gently for those who have been feeling mentally drained. Unfocused, creatively blocked, or weighed down by constant inner noise. The genius wave, sometimes presented alongside genius song, is described as a short audio experience built around brainwave entrainment, using sound patterns such as binaural beats and isochronic tones to help guide the mind into states associated with deeper focus, calm, creativity, and mental clarity. It is presented as a simple 7-minute daily practice for people who feel scattered, overstimulated, mentally tired, or unable to access the sharper version of themselves they know is still there. If that kind of support feels relevant to you, you can look for the official information in the description or the pinned comment and review it for yourself in a calm and thoughtful way. Be careful with imitations and false versions, and only use the official source if you decide to try it. And now, with that said, return your attention fully to the deeper message, because what is happening in your spirit reaches beyond mental sharpness alone. There comes a point in the life of the chosen when the wilderness is no longer only a place of training. It becomes the place of encounter. For Moses, this was the turning point. The hidden years had done their work. The noise of Egypt was behind him. The pride of self-direction had been worn down by time, loss, labor, and silence. He was no longer the younger man who thought destiny could be seized through force. He was now quiet enough to notice what heaven had been preparing all along. And that is often how the next movement begins for you as well. Not when you are at your loudest, but when you are finally able to notice the fire that does not consume. Moses was tending sheep, engaged in ordinary duty when he saw the bush burning. There is something deeply important in that detail. The divine interruption did not arrive while he was performing for crowds or chasing recognition. It came while he was being faithful in obscurity. It came when life looked simple on the surface. It came in the middle of routine. That is how God often speaks to the chosen. He lets you walk through long stretches of hidden preparation, and then suddenly, in a moment that looks almost ordinary to everyone else, eternity pierces the day and everything changes. You may be closer to that moment than you realize. You may think you are still only carrying out small responsibilities, still walking through familiar terrain, still waiting for clarity. But heaven knows exactly where to meet you. God does not lose your address in the wilderness. He does not forget the one he marked from birth. He knows the hour when your eyes are ready to see and your spirit is ready to respond. The burning bush was not only a sign for Moses. It was the unveiling of what had always been true. The God who preserved him in infancy, who allowed the palace and who permitted the exile, who formed him in Midian, was now calling him by name. That is the sacred center of this section of your journey. The call becomes personal, not general, not distant, not abstract. Personal. Moses did not encounter a vague force. He encountered the living God, and that encounter demanded attention. The fire burned, but the bush remained. Power was present, but not destructive. Holiness was near, and it required reverence. Moses could not treat that moment casually. Neither can you. There are seasons when the voice of God comes near enough that excuses begin to lose their strength. You are no longer simply sensing that you are different. You are beginning to understand why. This is where many people tremble, because true calling always brings both wonder and weight. Wonder because to be addressed by God is overwhelming mercy. Weight because once the call becomes clear, you can no longer hide behind confusion in the same way. Moses had lived many years with fragments of identity, fragments of pain, fragments of memory or tin. But at the bush, those fragments began to gather into assignment. He was told not only who God is, but what he must do. He was being sent back toward the very place that once held his fear, his failure, and his unfinished story. You know how unsettling that can feel. God does not always call you around your wounds. Sometimes he calls you through the territory that once wounded you. He does not do this to shame you. He does it to reveal that what once defined your weakness will no longer rule your future. Moses had fled Egypt as a man carrying uncertainty. He would return as a man sent by God. That difference changes everything. It is not the absence of fear that marks the chosen. It is the presence of divine authority stronger than fear. And still, notice the tenderness in the encounter. God did not call Moses without first revealing his presence. He did not give assignment without first creating holy ground. He did not send him forward without showing that heaven had already come near. This matters for you, because the call on your life is not a cold demand. It is born from relationship. The God who summons you is also the God who meets you. The God who assigns you is also the God who sustains you. The fire that startles you is the same fire that guides you. So when your own burning bush moment begins to unfold, do not dismiss it because it arrives in a form you did not expect. It may come through a sentence that refuses to leave your spirit. It may come through a season of deep conviction. It may come through a sudden inner clarity after years of fog. It may come through the sense that what once seemed impossible is now standing in front of you as a holy necessity. However it comes, the pattern remains the same. God called. The chosen turn aside to see. And in that turning, destiny moves from hidden preparation into living command. This is not the end of your formation. It is the end of pretending that formation was all it was. The fire has appeared. Your name is being spoken more clearly. The years behind you are beginning to make sense in the light of what stands before you now. And just as Moses discovered in the wilderness that heaven had not forgotten him for a single day, you are being brought into the trembling sacred realization that the God who led you through silence is now leading you into purpose. Once the fire has spoken and the call has become clear, the battle around your life does not grow quieter. It grows more visible. This is where many chosen ones become alarmed, because they assume that clarity should remove conflict. But in truth, clarity often exposes conflict. The moment Moses accepted that he was being sent, the resistance surrounding his purpose began to rise into full view. What had once been hidden beneath the surface now stood in front of him as a living opposition. Pharaoh was not only a ruler of flesh and blood. He represented a system, a spirit of domination, a structure built to keep God's people exhausted, afraid, and unable to imagine freedom. When Moses stepped forward under divine instruction, he was not merely confronting a man, he was confronting the arrogance of darkness that had mistaken long oppression for permanent ownership. This is why your awakening has been met with unusual pressure. The moment you started to come into spiritual focus, certain battles seemed to intensify. Thoughts became heavier. Delay became more frustrating. Fear tried to sound more convincing. Old temptations returned with new language. Weariness arrived at strange moments. Doors that looked easy for others seemed to resist you. None of this means that you misunderstood the call. Much of it means that your movement has become a threat to what once fed on your confusion. Darkness is rarely disturbed by a sleeping person. It reacts when someone begins to rise. Moses had to learn that divine assignment does not remove opposition, but it does redefine it. He was not sent to Egypt because the path would be smooth. He was sent because bondage had to be challenged. In the same way, your calling is not being formed in a world that will automatically celebrate purity, obedience, truth, and surrender. You are moving through territory where false power often speaks loudly. It uses intimidation. It uses spectacle. It uses repetition. It tries to make oppression look normal and compromise look wise. If you do not understand the spiritual nature of this resistance, you may start blaming yourself for every battle. But not every struggle is a sign that something is wrong with you. Some struggles are evidence that something holy in you has become active. This is where Moses becomes such a powerful mirror for your own journey. He did not return to Egypt as a flawless man with no trembling. he returned with questions, memories, and a deep awareness of his own limitations. Yet the power of his mission did not rest in personal perfection. It rested in the God who sent him. Again and again, Moses had to watch the Lord answer resistance with signs, judgments, disruptions, and undeniable demonstrations of authority. Egypt had its magicians, its symbols, its throne, its hardened will. But none of those things could finally overpower the word of God. What looked immovable began to crack under the pressure of heaven. You need this reminder now. Some chains in your life have looked ancient. Some patterns have felt inherited, repeated, reinforced by years of disappointment and inner fatigue. Some voices have spoken to you for so long that they almost sound natural. But Pharaoh sounding strong did not make Pharaoh eternal. Oppression lasting a long time did not make it rightful. And the same is true for what has tried to rule your mind, weaken your confidence, or keep your spirit bowed low. Its longevity is not proof of its authority. God's word over your life is older than the bondage that confronted you and stronger than the fear that tries to name you. There is also another side to this battle. Spiritual warfare is not always dramatic in outward form. Sometimes it is the daily war over attention, the war over what gets to define your identity when you wake up in the morning. The war over whether disappointment gets the final word in your heart. The war over whether delay becomes bitterness. The war over whether pain turns into unbelief. Pharaoh wanted bodies for labor, but darkness also wants agreement. It wants you to believe that slavery is your natural condition. It wants you to forget that freedom was spoken over you before oppression ever learned your name. So you must guard your inner agreement. You must be careful what you repeatedly bow to in thought, in expectation, and in speech. Moses stood before outward power, but he also had to remain inwardly anchored. He had to keep returning to what God had said, even when the process became exhausting and the opposition seemed stubborn. That is part of your battle now, not simply surviving the pressure, but staying aligned with truth while the pressure tries to rename your future. And because many others are fighting this same unseen war in silence, there is something meaningful in helping this message reach them. If this word meets you in a real place, you can like, share, and subscribe in a way that feels simple and sincere, so another weary heart can be strengthened. And for those who have asked how to support the continued sharing of messages like this, there is also a donate option in the description for anyone who feels genuinely led to give. Still, do not lose the center of what is unfolding here. This is not a story about darkness becoming greater. It is a story about hidden authority being revealed. The more Pharaoh resisted, the more clearly heaven's power was displayed. The more the system hardened, the more unmistakable the difference became between human control and divine command. Your life is moving into that same unveiling. What has challenged you is not greater than the one who called you. What has tried to intimidate you is not beyond the reach of God's hand. The war may be real, but so is the authority being formed in you through it. So stand firm in this truth. The conflict around your calling is not proof that you should retreat. It is often the confirmation that your obedience matters. Moses did not return to Egypt to be swallowed by the old order. He returned so that bondage would meet its limit. And you, chosen one, are not awakening merely to admire the fire from a distance. You are awakening to walk in the authority of the one who sends you, even when the powers of darkness protest your rising. There comes a moment in every sacred calling when the greatest danger is no longer ignorance. It is retreat, not because the call has become false, but because the pressure around it becomes intense enough to make turning back look reasonable. This is the threshold Moses had to cross again and again. He had already left Egypt once in fear. He had already spent years in the wilderness learning silence, patience, and dependence. He had already stood before the fire and heard the voice of God. Yet even after all that, the road forward still demanded repeated surrender. Chosen people are not tested only at the beginning. They are tested at the edge of breakthrough, when obedience costs something real and the old life tries one final time to pull them backward. You know this edge. It is the place where your spirit has already recognized the truth, but your emotions still tremble before the consequences of fully embracing it. It is the moment when the familiar begins calling your name again, not because it is holy, but because it is known. There is a strange comfort in what once enslaved you, simply because you have lived with it so long. Fear becomes familiar, delay becomes familiar, doubt becomes familiar. Even self-limitation can begin to feel like a form of safety. This is why the warning not to turn back matters so deeply. Turning back is rarely a single dramatic decision. More often, it begins as a quiet negotiation with what God already told you to leave behind. Moses saw this among the people he was leading, but he also had to face it within himself. Egypt was not only a location behind them. It was a mentality that kept trying to survive inside them. Even after signs, wonders, judgments, and deliverance, there were still moments when the pull of bondage tried to disguise itself as practicality. The unknown ahead felt frightening, so the past began to appear less cruel in memory than it truly was. That is one of the oldest tricks in spiritual life. The soul under pressure begins to edit the past. It forgets the chains and remembers only the predictability. It forgets the humiliation and remembers only the routine. It forgets what it cried out against because present discomfort makes old captivity look strangely manageable. This warning is for you now because you are moving through a season where the old life may try to market itself as wisdom. It may tell you to lower your expectations, to stop listening so deeply, to return to what numbs you, to settle for a version of life that costs less spiritually. It may whisper that intense obedience is unnecessary, that partial surrender is enough, that compromise is maturity. But the deeper your spirit wakes up, the more clearly you can feel the poison in those arguments. What once seemed harmless now feels dangerous. What once seemed normal now feels expensive. You are realizing that retreat never returns you to innocence. It returns you to limitation. Moses had to keep moving with people who often struggled to trust what lay ahead, and that required a kind of endurance beyond emotion. He could not lead by mood alone. He had to remain anchored in what God had said. In the same way, your next steps cannot be built only on how you feel on a difficult day. Feelings matter, but they cannot be your master. There will be mornings when clarity feels bright and evenings when weariness tries to dim it. There will be moments when courage rises naturally and moments when you must choose obedience before courage catches up. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are walking a real path, and real paths require perseverance. The warning not to turn back is also a mercy, because it reveals that your choice truly matters. God is not forcing you through the door of calling as if your will were irrelevant. He speaks, He summons, He warns, He strengthens. But He also invites your agreement. There is dignity in that. The chosen life is not passive. It is relational. Heaven does not erase your will. It calls your will into alignment. Each time you refuse the old compromise, each time you reject the voice of spiritual sleep, each time you keep moving even while trembling, something in you becomes stronger and more whole. This is why the crossing moments are so holy. The Red Sea was not merely a miracle of escape. It was a dividing line between what had ruled before and what could no longer claim ownership. Once you pass through certain places in the spirit, turning back is no longer simple. You have seen too much. You have heard too much. You know too deeply now. The old chains may still shout from behind you, but they no longer have the same right to define you. The struggle is real, yes, but so is the transformation already taking place within you. One verse captures the essence of this warning with piercing clarity. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will work for you today. Exodus chapter 14, verse 13. These words were spoken at a moment when panic would have made retreat seem understandable. The sea stood ahead. The enemy pressed behind. The visible options looked impossible. Yet the command was not to return, not to collapse, not to surrender to terror. It was to stand firm. That same command reaches you now. Stand firm when fear tries to make urgency out of confusion. Stand firm when old voices try to reclaim their influence. Stand firm when the path ahead feels larger than your present strength. Standing firm does not mean pretending you feel no pressure. It means refusing to let pressure become your Lord. It means remembering that the God who preserved Moses at birth, formed him in the wilderness, spoke through fire, and confronted Pharaoh is the same God who makes a way where human eyes see none. You are not being called to manufacture deliverance by yourself. You are being called to remain aligned long enough to witness what only God can do. So hear the warning as love, not threat. Do not turn back. Do not barter your awakening for temporary relief. Do not let the discomfort of transition deceive you into worshiping the familiarity of bondage. The path may narrow before it opens, and the night may deepen before the morning reveals what God has prepared. But retreat is not your inheritance. Forward through obedience is where your freedom lives, and your spirit already knows it. After the warning comes the awakening of authority. And this is where many chosen ones hesitate, because authority sounds too large for the person they still remember themselves being. Moses knew that feeling. He had spent years thinking of himself through the lens of limitation. He remembered his failure. He remembered his fear. He remembered the day he ran, even after the burning bush, even after the voice of God named the assignment. Part of him still looked at his own life and saw weakness before he saw commission. That is why this stage matters so much for you. The authority God places on a life does not begin in your self-confidence. It begins in His decision to work through what you once thought disqualified you. There is a holy difference between pride and authority. Pride says you are powerful because of yourself. Authority says God has placed something in your hand, on your life, and within your spirit for His purpose. Moses had to learn this lesson slowly. When God sent him, He did not first give him a new personality. He showed him what was already available under divine command. The staff in Moses' hand had once looked ordinary. It was a shepherd's tool, familiar, simple, tied to years of hidden labor in the wilderness. Yet under the word of God, that same staff became a sign that heaven uses what has been with you all along. The ordinary object became a vessel of extraordinary obedience. That truth reaches directly into your life. You keep asking whether you have enough, whether you are enough, whether the pieces in your life could ever become useful in something sacred. But chosen one authority often awakens through what you have stopped valuing because it feels too familiar. The lessons you learned in private, the endurance formed through pain, the discernment born from tears, the compassion shaped by rejection, the steadiness built through long waiting. These things may seem small because you live with them every day, but in the hands of God they become part of how your calling takes form. Moses did not part the sea by inventing power. He obeyed with what God had already assigned to him. And that is the quiet mystery of spiritual authority. It does not require you to become someone artificial. It requires you to surrender what you already carry so fully that heaven can move through it without resistance. This is why your healing matters. This is why your honesty mattered. This is why your obedience matters. Authority is not noise. It is alignment. It is the state in which your life stops arguing with what God has spoken and begins to cooperate with it. You may have spent years shrinking because you misunderstood humility. Real humility is not denying what God placed in you. Real humility is agreeing with heaven without stealing the glory for yourself. Moses had to stand before Pharaoh again and again, not because he suddenly became impressed with himself, but because he learned that obedience mattered more than his insecurity. He discovered that what God says about a chosen life is truer than what fear says about it. You are being invited into that same discovery now, not to worship your own strength, but to stop insulting God's assignment by pretending you are empty when He has already filled you with what is needed for this season. There is a reason the enemy fights your sense of spiritual authority so aggressively. If you remain uncertain about what God has placed within you, you will keep waiting for permission from lesser voices. You will delay what should be done. You will question what should be trusted. You will hand your confidence over to moods, circumstances, and other people's reactions. But when authority awakens, something changes. You begin to speak with greater peace. You begin to walk with greater steadiness. You begin to recognize that fear may still visit, but it no longer rules the house. The old chains do not vanish in a single emotional moment, yet they lose the right to define your posture. This is the point where the story of Moses becomes intensely personal for your own spirit. His authority was not for display, it was for deliverance. He did not receive signs and power so he could feel superior. He received them so captives could move toward freedom. In the same way, what God is awakening in you is not merely for your own comfort. It is connected to service, to obedience, to witness, to the lives that will be strengthened because you finally stand where heaven has placed you. The authority on your life is not vanity. It is responsibility wrapped in grace. One verse brings this truth into sharp and holy focus. The Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A staff." Exodus chapter 4, verse 2. That question still echoes now. What is in your hand and what has God already allowed to grow in your life through hidden years and painful chapters? What gift? What wisdom? What endurance? What voice? What tenderness? What courage has been waiting for your agreement? Heaven is not asking you to begin with what you do not have. Heaven is asking you to surrender what you do have. So let this be the hour when false weakness begins to break. Not because you suddenly feel invincible, but because you finally understand that your calling does not depend on natural perfection. It depends on divine partnership. The same God who met Moses in fire, led him through resistance, and carried him through impossible moments now invites you to stop looking only at your history and start looking at His hand upon it. Comment chosen and ready. Authority does not always feel dramatic when it awakens. Sometimes it feels like quiet certainty after years of inner noise. Sometimes it feels like peace returning to places once ruled by panic. Sometimes it feels like the courage to say yes without needing every answer in advance. However it comes, honor it. Do not dismiss the strengthening that is happening in you. Do not call it arrogance when it is actually alignment. Do not retreat into old self-definitions just because your next step feels weighty. The staff is in your hand. The word has been spoken. The years of hiding were not meaningless. The battles did not erase your calling. The warning not to turn back has brought you here, to the place where fear is no longer allowed to narrate your identity. And now the authority that once felt distant begins to settle into your spirit as something real, steady, and usable. You are not merely being told that you are chosen. You are beginning to live like it. By now, the movement of your calling is no longer only inward, it begins to gather outwardly. What God has spoken in secret starts drawing connections in public, and what once felt like an isolated burden begins to reveal itself as part of a greater design. This is what happened through Moses as the journey advanced. He was never called only to survive his own awakening. He was called to lead a people through waters, through fear, through uncertainty, and toward covenant alignment. The authority placed on his life was meant to become a path for others. In the same way, what is unfolding in you is not meant to remain sealed inside your private world. The chosen are often prepared in solitude, but they are not meant to remain imprisoned there forever. At the appointed time, God turns personal formation into communal movement. This is the holy mystery of gathering. Before it becomes visible, it begins in the spirit. People who have been shaped in different places, through different trials, under different pressures, begin to feel a similar pull. They may not know each other's names yet. They may not understand the full map. They may still be carrying questions, scars, and trembling. Yet the same God who marked them individually begins drawing them toward a shared direction. That does not happen by accident. It happens because heaven never calls the chosen into meaninglessness. God gathers with intention. He gathers for worship, for witness, for obedience, for endurance, and for the fulfillment of what one life alone could not carry. Moses experienced this truth at the waters. The crossing was not only about escape from Egypt, it was about separation unto God. A people who had lived under the shadow of bondage were being brought through a dividing line. Behind them stood the old order with its cruelty, familiarity, and demands. Before them stood a future not yet fully understood. Between those two realities was the place of impossible passage, the moment where only divine power could create a way. Moses stood there not merely as an individual believer, but as a vessel through whom an entire people could move forward. That is what gathering looks like when heaven is leading it. One life hears, many lives are carried. This matters deeply for you because part of your pain has come from feeling alone in what you carry. You have known the ache of being misunderstood. You have known the fatigue of trying to explain spiritual hunger to people content with surfaces. You have known what it is to feel inwardly summoned while outwardly surrounded by those who do not recognize the gravity of the hour. But there comes a time when God answers that loneliness. Not always by removing every difference, but by revealing that you are not the only one being called. The same hand that preserved Moses also preserved a people. The same voice that commissioned a leader also stirred a remnant to move. The same power that opened the sea made room for many feet to cross. Notice, though, that gathering does not erase the need for faith. The people still had to walk between walls of water. They still had to move while the path looked unnatural. They still had to trust that what God opened would remain open long enough for obedience to pass through it. That is where your journey continues to mirror theirs. Being drawn toward divine alignment with others does not mean everything suddenly becomes easy or predictable. It means you begin to discern holy companionship in the midst of holy risk. It means the path is still supernatural, but you are no longer carrying its weight as though the burden were yours alone. God is teaching you that chosen lives are distinct, but they are not abandoned. Moses also had to understand that leadership in sacred gathering is not ownership. The people belonged to God, not to him. He was a servant in the movement, not the source of it. This is important for you as well, as God draws you into greater alignment with those who are also awakening. You must remember that the center is never a human personality. The center is the presence and purpose of God. Gathering becomes dangerous when people begin worshiping vessels rather than the one who fills them. Moses at his best points beyond himself. His life says not look at me as the answer, but follow the God who makes a way where none exists. That same humility must guard your spirit. What God is doing through you may become meaningful to others, but it must always remain anchored in reverence. One verse holds the beauty of this moment with extraordinary power. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Exodus chapter 14, verse 22. This is not only the record of a miracle, it is the image of gathered passage. Not one person crossing alone in secret, but a people moving together through what only God could have opened. It is the picture of divine separation and divine union at once. They were separated from Egypt and joined together in obedience. That is what is happening in your spirit now. You are being drawn out and drawn together. The false coverings are breaking. The old names are losing authority. The hidden preparation of earlier seasons is beginning to connect with a wider movement of purpose. You may not see every face yet. You may not know every step ahead. But you can feel the change. The call is no longer only about your private survival. It is about your place in a greater procession of obedience. So do not fear the waters simply because they rise on both sides of your path. Do not mistake the strangeness of this hour for abandonment. The road God opens rarely looks ordinary to natural eyes, yet his faithfulness holds it steady. The same Lord who met Moses in secrecy now leads many through a public miracle. And the same Lord who formed you in hidden places is now showing you that your obedience belongs to something larger than your own story. The gathering is not chaos, it is calling made visible. It is heaven drawing the marked ones through the waters and into the next movement of destiny. Now the path that has been unfolding through every hidden season, every wilderness silence, every warning, every act of obedience, comes into its final ascent. This is not the moment where your story becomes easier in the shallow sense. It is the moment where it becomes clearer. Moses had come through the river of preservation at birth, the tension of the palace, the stripping of the wilderness, the fire of encounter, the confrontation with darkness, the warning not to retreat, the awakening of authority, and the gathering through the waters. By the time he stood fully inside the weight of his calling, one truth had become undeniable. God had not been improvising with his life. Every chapter had been preparing him for sacred responsibility. That is what you are beginning to understand now. The call on your life was never an emotional idea. It was never a passing impression. It was never a comforting phrase meant to soothe you for a moment and disappear. It has been the deep structure beneath your whole journey. The pain did not invent it. The wilderness did not erase it. Delay did not weaken it. Opposition did not cancel it. If anything, each of those things revealed how real it was. A false calling would have collapsed under the pressure. A human fantasy would have died in the desert. But what God speaks over a life can survive fire, silence, fear, and time. This final movement is about accepting your place without shrinking from it. Moses never became a man who could boast before God. He remained dependent. He remained human. He remained deeply aware that without the presence of the Lord, he could do nothing of lasting value, yet he also could not deny what had been entrusted to him. He had to carry it. He had to walk in it. He had to lead with it. And now you are being brought to that same point of holy acceptance. Not self-worship, not spiritual pride, but agreement. Agreement with what heaven has spoken. Agreement with what your life has been preparing you for. Agreement with the truth that you are not called to stand at the edge forever, talking about purpose while avoiding the full weight of obedience. There is a kind of crowning that happens in the spirit before anything visible changes on the outside. It is the moment when your heart stops negotiating with the call. It is the moment when your yes becomes settled. It is the moment when you no longer need endless signs to keep moving, because your soul has already yielded to the one who called you. Moses knew hardship still lay ahead. He knew leadership would remain costly. He knew the journey with God was not a straight road lined with comfort, but something in him had already crossed over. He belonged to the assignment now in a deeper way than ever before. That is the crossing taking place in you. You are not merely hearing that you have a purpose. You are embracing the cost and the beauty of walking in it. You are beginning to understand that your life is not your own in the shallow, fearful way the world imagines, but in the sacred, liberating way of one who has been entrusted with something eternal. When you live from that place, suffering no longer defines you, though it may still touch you. Delay no longer names you, though it may still test you. Human rejection no longer rules you, though it may still wound you. The center shifts. God becomes the fixed point around which everything else is understood. And in this moment, it is right to let prayer rise naturally from what has been formed in you. Father, in the name of your mercy and truth, I place this chosen life before you. Let every false label fall away. Let every chain that survived through fear be broken by your presence. Strengthen what you have planted, purify what still needs refining, heal what still aches beneath the surface, restore courage where weariness has tried to settle. Give clear eyes, a steady heart, and a spirit that does not turn back. As you were faithful to Moses through water, wilderness, fire, and resistance, be faithful here also. Let your presence go before this life. Let your wisdom guard every step. Let your peace rule over panic. Let your authority silence every lying voice. And let obedience become beautiful, joyful, and complete. Amen. That prayer is not distant from your journey. It belongs inside it. The God who carried Moses is not limited by ancient time. He is still the God who summons, forms, warns, strengthens, and sends. So step into this final ascent with reverence, but also with confidence born from surrender. You do not go crowned by human applause. You go marked by divine purpose. You do not go because the road has become easy. You go because the call has become undeniable, and because there are others still standing where you once stood, still wondering whether the stirring in their spirit is real, still trying to understand why their lives have never fit comfortably inside ordinary patterns. There is value in helping this message travel further. If this journey has spoken to your heart, you can like, share, and subscribe in a quiet and sincere way so that another person in a hidden place can be strengthened at the right time. And for those who have asked how to support the continued sharing of messages like this, there is also a donate option in the description for anyone who feels genuinely led to help. But above all, remain faithful. Moses did not become meaningful because he avoided difficulty. He became a vessel because he stayed near the God who called him. That same secret remains true for you. Stay near, Stay yielded. Stay awake. Let your heart remain soft even as your spirit grows strong. Let your obedience remain humble even as your authority deepens. Let your life continue to point beyond itself to the one who has written every sacred chapter. You have come too far to return to lesser things. You have been shown too much to live as though none of it matters. The gathering, the fire, the wilderness, the waters, the authority, the warning, all of it has been leading here. Not to an ending of silence, but to a life that now walks with clearer purpose. This is your final ascent in the message, but it is not the end of your calling. It is the place where your yes becomes mature enough to carry what comes next. So lift your heart, stand in peace. Let the fear of yesterday lose its voice. Let the calling of God settle over you with fresh strength. And know this with quiet certainty. What heaven began in you, heaven has not abandoned. What God marked from the beginning, He will continue to guide. And what He has summoned, He will also sustain. Beloved chosen one, breathe for a moment and let this truth rest gently on your spirit. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are not standing outside the reach of God. The same hand that preserved Moses, formed him, corrected him, and walked with him has been moving through your life as well. Even the chapters you did not understand were not empty. They were carrying hidden mercy. So as you leave this message, do not rush back into noise. Carry the stillness with you. Carry the remembrance with you. Carry the prayer with you. Let your next step be simple, honest, and obedient. You do not need to know everything at once. You only need to stay near the one who does. Peace over your mind, strength over your heart, light over your path. And may your life continue to unfold under the faithful presence of God, one surrendered step at a time.